In my 20s, there was a guy who I was really good friends with. We were both actively doing music, actively developing our craft, and his vocals continually changed about every 6 months. He was constantly changing from sounding like Creed to sounding like Jason Mraz to sounding like, whoever the thing was at the time. And I remember I remember thinking, like, this doesn't sound like you at all. Like, none of these sound like you. But I also realized looking back that he was trying to find a way to stand out. He was trying to find a way to own his own voice. And he was working through a process that eventually came out with something that felt like him. Now, I think there was this combination of, I'm trying to be an entertainer, and that's not what we're talking about. I want to be an entertainer, so I need to have a unique value. And so that was kind of his mode, but I think there's some value in that, in like, hey, over time, you're going to work things out. So right off the bat, we're talking about finding your true voice in the pulpit. Is there anything that you want to say about that and about that process before we get into the deep dive?
Well, what I want to say at the front end is why I think this matters is because people are going to experience you in the pulpit and out of the pulpit. Especially your family is going to do that, but really everybody. And if there's just this sense that you become someone radically different in the pulpit, I think it's just confusing to people. And so, it's obviously, if we're saying things about God and about our lives that are inconsistent with how we're living, then we're being hypocrites. And that's not really what I'm talking about. I mean, of course, that's a problem if that's a problem. But it's more to say, like, does it just feel kind of the same to be with you in the pulpit and out of the pulpit? And one way I think about it a lot is like, it's your normal voice, it's your normal personality, it's your normal things you're into, probably turned up a couple notches because you're on a stage and, the room's big and it's a different thing. Like I definitely talk way louder when I preach than I do in my, around the dinner table. But I don't think my kids would be like, man, he just transforms into some totally different person. And so that's what it is trying to go, how do you just stay consistent with who you are?
That is the crux of the conversation. Is my friend, the reason why it was important for him to find his voice is because he needed to stand out and show record labels, hey, I've got something different and unique here. Whereas what we're saying is this is important because you have to be true to who you are and a consistent, application of that across the board, and maybe turned up a couple notches, like you said.
Well, and it's freeing. I mean, it's just, it's so freeing to not feel like you're performing, to not feel like the image I have is, the point at which, David shows up because there's this great battle, the Philistines against Goliath, and no one will challenge him. And David's like, I'm in. And so the first thing they do is they give him Saul's armor, and he clunks around in Saul's armor for a while and goes, this just kind of doesn't fit. And I really hope part of what this conversation does is that it gives some preachers the ability to go, the way I've been doing this doesn't totally fit. And I'm going to feel free to take off that armor that is actually someone else's voice. It's someone else's personality. It's someone else's emphasis. And I'm going to put on mine and experience the freedom of that and the joy of that. And then I think God will just bless that as it's just true to who he's made you to be.